All right, hello everyone. I welcome you all to day three and the last training session for Republic Day Forensics. Today is a demo session where I'm going to show you a video of original oratory, and I'm going to also link down other video that I found really interesting and you can learn from. So let's start with this one and let me know if you guys can actually hear the audio.
Wizard number 5
Can you guys
is
hear the
code
audio?
1.
Okay, I'll just skip it to this part and you can watch it.
In April of last year, I was in my living room watching a Black Lives Matter demonstration unfold on TV. Protesters demanded justice in one corner while police stared solemnly from the other. And that's when something unforgettable happened. Seemingly out of nowhere, a young woman emerged from the crowd, boldly approached an officer, and handed him a peace offering. The whole world seemed to hold its breath as she claimed her Tiananmen Square moment. And I, along with millions, wondered who exactly this brave soul was. And that's when I realized, that's Kendall Jenner. Noted Kardashian reality star turned supermodel, starring in a Pepsi commercial. I don't even need to tell you what happened next, because you know that upon receiving their Pepsis, both protesters and police became one. Dancing, high-fiving, singing a Kardashian kumbaya. And now, I am pleased to announce that Black lives finally matter. Up next, Kylie Jenner ends Islamophobia with a can of Mountain Dew. Yeah, it should come as no surprise that upon airing, this ad was met with a tidal wave of backlash against its many faults. But Nathaniel Friedman of the New York Times pointed out something insightful when he wrote that the ad oversimplified a complex racial movement into something trite and easily fixed. Because unfortunately, in a world where simplicity reigns supreme, this habit of oversimplification transcends advertising. And that's my concern. I fear that today, we oversimplify the inherently complex with disturbing frequency, be it politically or personally. Gone is our appreciation of nuance and depth, replaced instead with a national appetite for sound bites and slogans. To put it simply, we put things too simply. And in the process, journalist Byron Williams explains that we begin to seek the easy answer, even when the difficult one, however elusive, is most necessary. So today, let's examine how we oversimplify. First, issues, and next, people. Then we'll discuss the harms of doing so, before finally coming up with some not-so-simple solutions. So don't get me wrong. Pepsi's not the only one guilty of oversimplifying race in America. Last year, Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner proved his commitment to racial equality by walking on stage in Chicago and chugging a glass of chocolate milk. As he drank, the governor said, and I quote, diversity. That actually happened. And though that sounds crazy, like him, we often oversimplify issues and end up minimizing them. Don't believe me? Well, how many times have you heard someone debunk global warming by citing the robust evidence that it's cold outside? We do this with every issue under the sun. In fact, just last January, while discussing immigration policy, TV pundit Tomi Lahren argued for border security by stating that it's simple. The same way we lock the doors to our houses at night, we ought to lock the doors to our country as well. And you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I don't think Tomi Lahren likes chocolate milk. I mean, really, immigration is the job of 22 federal agencies and can't possibly be reduced to such a facile analogy. Now, for that matter, neither can the gun debate. But that doesn't stop millions from echoing the line we've all heard. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Which sounds true enough, but as articulated by Dr. David Kyle Johnson of King's College, this defense cleverly evades the fact that guns make it substantially easier for people to kill people. You know, the fact is, when we adopt such simplistic rhetoric, it's not just the issues we oversimplify, but their solutions as well. You want to put a stop to illegal immigration? Great. Build a wall, crime will fall. And if you want to end school shootings, then just arm the teachers. You know, these so-called solutions are little more than Band-Aids for bullet wounds. They don't solve anything. They just deny us the rational discourse we deserve. Now, we don't just oversimplify to minimize issues, but also to marginalize the people we don't like or agree with. Frankly, it's what Hillary Clinton did when she referred to millions of Trump supporters as a basket of deplorables, as if their stories were all exactly the same. And we routinely do this to each other, constructing narratives that are appealingly simple, but mistaken. It's why 1 in 3 Americans believe that the root of poverty is laziness. Because it's just easier to blame low-income people for their plight than it is to address the complex inequities that force them into it. We have begun to argue down what author Michael Lysak calls the path of least resistance, not only reducing people to talking points, but bypassing reason. And it's not just illogical, it's reductive. It's reductive when the Department of Health and Human Services intentionally defines gender in the simplest possible terms, thereby eliminating the federal protections of transgender people. And it's reductive when a former senator tells the teenage survivors of a school shooting that instead of making Congress solve their problem, why can't they just learn CPR? These oversimplifications accomplish nothing besides marginalizing people and trivializing their strife. And I hope we can all agree that that is deplorable. Yeah, I have no doubt that the harms of this habit have been felt by each of us. But the harm I fear most, the one most responsible for eroding nuance and wrecking our discourse, is the false dichotomy, wherein we insist that answers must be either black or white, left or right, and nothing in between. Yesterday's complexities become the binaries of tomorrow. If that sounds abstract, it isn't. I've lived it. When then-candidate Trump proposed his Muslim ban in 2016, my neighbor told me that I had nothing to fear because I was one of the good ones. You know, I have to ask, were the 50 Muslims slaughtered in a New Zealand mosque 3 months ago good ones or bad ones? When she said that, I felt so diminished. But what really struck me is that she didn't intend to hurt me. You know, her words lacked malice, but they were injected with bias. And that's what makes this so insidious. And we often don't mean to oversimplify, it's just so easy to. And along the way, whatever our intent, Communities are categorized, issues minimized, and people, you and me, are dehumanized. So how do we solve this? Well, the simple answer is we can't. It'd be absurd of me to denounce quick fixes and simple solutions in one breath and then offer them in the next. So I won't. But I will suggest this. We are not neatly drawn people living in a neatly drawn nation. Our lives are rife with contradiction and ambiguity at every turn. So how can we ensure that our discourse and our politics reflect that? Well, I believe that starts with rejecting the oversimplified false binaries presented to us in America today. What does that mean? Well, take the issues of our time. It means believing the radical notion that we can uphold the Second Amendment and at the same time we can end gun violence once and for all. It's not either or. We can protect our borders and we can treat immigrants and asylum seekers with the compassion they deserve. And most importantly, as Americans, we can love Cardi B and Nicki Minaj. It's not mutually exclusive. Let us not be tricked by the false choices meant to divide us. Next, in our own lives, we must make a commitment to meaningful communication. The farther away you stand from something, the simpler it seems. So be it on Twitter or at Thanksgiving dinner, the next time you find yourself debating the other side, get close. Not physically, that's assault, but ask questions. Engage with the intent to learn and not persuade. Try verbally reiterating the other person's point to them so as to ensure you don't oversimplify their argument. And the next time you hear the words, simply put, ask yourself, can this actually be put simply? If so, great. But I'd ask you to consider the simplest equation of all. 1 + 1 = 2. That's pretty basic, right? Well, what if I told you that the mathematical proof for that equation is 372 pages long? 70 years ago, Albert Einstein told us we ought to make our world as simple as possible, but no simpler. And he was right. In a world whose extraordinary beauty is thanks to its complexity, we owe that to each other. And that is as simple as it gets.
All right. So thoughts, any preliminary thoughts before we go into the discussion part? Does anyone want to say anything? Nothing? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you listen to it?
I think the structure was pretty good.
You think the structure was
Pretty good.
pretty good? Yes, it was really good. What else?
It was also
It was what?
Ma'am,
Say
the
because
way
you
you
were-
spoke was really attracted the audiences.
Yeah, yes. So I think all of these, so one is about structure, yes. What else? So
Yeah,
one is also about
also
delivery.
the personal touches along with the examples, the
Yes.
person.
So the personal touch, let's start with the personal touch itself because I think you all seem to note that pretty well. So what was the personal touch? Can anyone tell me the story? Like, were you able to identify the story?
Not able to hear that properly, but I guess I was sitting in the front of a TV or something.
Okay. Does anyone else want to take a chance and let me know what you think the story was? So the story was the part where he was talking about what ended up happening um, with, and it's an introduction with his neighbor, and how even though the neighbor did not want to discriminate him, but like the bias inside her brain actually ended up coming into picture in the conversation. So that was the personal touch. It was about how he's a Muslim, and then how other Muslims were also treated discriminatorily and all of that. So that was the personal touch. Did anyone notice how he started? Does anyone want to see the introduction? What was the introduction? Do you think that what was the tone of introduction? Can anyone tell me about that?
Was it humorous?
Yeah, it was humorous, yes. So the tone of introduction was humorous. I think the reason as to why he probably took humor as the tone was because humor actually ends up gathering a lot of attention. And specifically, I think his humor also did not just like end with like like something which was new, but I think something that people know about and extremely popular. Kendall Jenner and like you know some like people like pop culture and stuff like that. So I think it also ended up gathering a lot of attention. So that's also something that happened. Can anyone tell me as to what structure did he opt for with respect to his body? Remember I told you there is claim, there is analysis, there is evidence. What do you think did he do? So if you noticed, or if you did not notice, obviously there were a bunch of examples, everything just trying to support the idea, that one idea. And I'm also going to ask you what the idea is in a bit. But if you noticed, it was all about him telling that, um, it was all about him telling and relating to the introduction. But before that, okay, yeah, I think I have to ask you this night now itself. What do you think was the topic of his original oratory? Like the title.
Oversimplification.
Oversimplification of issues, correct? But did he also tag it differently? What was the tag of his speech?
Simply
Simply put, yes. So simply put is not necessarily just directly showing you that yeah, this is what the topic is, but simply put is something that he uses 3 times in his speech. But also in the beginning of his speech, a couple of things. You know that his topic is going to be about oversimplification of issues. You also know what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about the issues. He's going to talk about some ways how you can solve it, which he tells you just before moving on from the context when he was setting it up. So he gave you a case split as well, something that I told you that what exactly are judges expecting from your speech. Now, the last thing to note here is the closing and concluding remark. What do you think was his concluding remark? So he mentioned a lot about oversimplification of issues. And he also, before ending and before concluding, mentioned as to how it's just difficult for you to, solve this issue. He's then continued with how we can go ahead and try with these individual level efforts. And then he gives you 3 solutions to that. Um, After that, he goes forward and he tells you that even though people love, yeah, Aradhana, do you have the answer?
No, I have a question.
Yeah, I'll just come back to that. So even though, let's say if people want and love oversimplification, the reason as to why things aren't actually so simple, and he uses an example of the equation 1 + 1 = 2. I think that's also very interesting. So his concluding remark is to say that everything around us just seems simple, and it isn't simple, and it's always just not okay for you to give things simply and put think simply. And then he asked people to just stop recognizing and like even acknowledging the idea of simply like put things that are actually put simply. So that's his concluding remark. So that's how he concluded. The next thing I'm going to cover is going to be how his delivery was. But yeah, Radhna, what's your question?
Yeah, I had a doubt, and so his topic was oversimplification. So what was his like the subtopic that he was like dedicating the speech to?
No, his topic wasn't. So the actual NSDA original oratory, you don't have a theme to actually make a speech on, which is why he could
Okay.
use any topic that he wanted to, and he used the topic oversimplification. But here, to restrict the kind of speeches that can come, we made it
Okay.
themed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's come to the delivery part. There are a couple of things that I want to note. One, can anyone tell me about his body language? Did you see how his body language was? Do you think it was overwhelming? Do you think he was using his hand gestures? What do you think?
At points where he wanted to emphasize, he used his hands.
Yeah. And
That's
he
one
also
thing I
walked.
noticed. Yeah, he did.
He also walked.
Yes, he did walk. Did you also notice great amounts of pauses and adequate times when he actually paused? So he used to pause before getting a laugh. He used to pause before getting a like clappings and applauses. So what he does is he knows that this is the point at which I'm going to get a reaction, and he used to actually stop to the reaction and then continue, which is a very good and confident thing to do, because like when you're writing your script, you know that there are certain times when people are going to like it, it's satirical, and therefore people are probably going to also clap. So great, like choosing right times on or at which you want to actually pause is really important. Did anyone notice his emotion? What do you think his emotion was like? What was the tone throughout the speech? Was it same, or was it different at different points of time?
Different at different points of time.
But was there a main tone that he was following?
Yeah.
What do you think? What is it? What was his main tone?
Serious tone or calm tone?
Serious and a little emotional, actually. So he was actually disappointed by how people um just don't understand how bad the condition is. So I think his tone was more disappointed, serious, emotional altogether. And then at times he used to be humorous, at times he used to be angry. So angry a little less, but humorous more. But the way how he used humor was not to actually degrade or demean any community or any person for that matter, but was really humorous in general. So I think that's also something you really need to remember before actually using and choosing humor. So the idea is that try to use different tones, try to set one main tone, and then other tones are just to break the monotony. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Also, like use eye contact. So he was not just like looking at one place, he was actually looking at everyone while obviously walking. So yeah, that's something that you need to learn and also incorporate in your speech. Now, let's move forward and let's take a practice motion. And let's try to find out as to what you would do if you had the motion. Um, so this is the motion. Truthfulness leads to a just society. If this is your motion, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think of an introduction. Okay. So think, I'm going to ask you about the introduction. Truthfulness leads to a just society. If you want, I can also put it in the chat box. So everybody has to work. I can pick and choose anyone to speak about it. All right, so let's start with Ira. Do you have an introduction? Ira? Isn't in the meeting. Aradhana? Aradhana, are you there? Okay, does anyone want to volunteer for it? How would you make introduction?
I've not completed it.
No, I think I just want like 2 sentences on, let's say, a quote or like what's your idea related to it, not like a full speech.
Like I'm thinking of including some days ago I read about the circle of justice in the school, which goes like a king cannot live without soldiers, soldiers without salaries. So in this circle there's an element of trust, and trust is directly connected to honesty.
Oh, that's really nice. That's a good way. Yes, you can do that. Is there anyone else who would want to try? Nobody? Okay, I mean, this is for you. If you don't want to do it, I can't force you. The next one is how would you make body? Does any so the idea about body is to say as to is truthfulness actually yes, girl.
I want to say the introduction.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like it's not like much bigger, so I will like just roughly only.
Yeah.
If you hear the word truthfulness, something positive comes to your mind. Truth plays a very important role in someone's life. It is often said that if you tell truth, you don't have to remember anything.
Yes. Okay. So you gave like a little bit of definitions and stuff on truthfulness and truth, I guess. That's fine. What else? Um, so the idea is if truthfulness leads to a just society, it doesn't always have to be the positive of it. You can also give the opposite view of it. Is there anyone who can argue that even the like what like it's not always necessary for you to be truthful to lead to a just society, to live a just society? Okay, Vedant, what do you think? We can lie? Why do you think we can lie? Okay, Anagha.
Ma'am, I don't disagree with the fact that truthfulness will lead to a just society, but truthfulness isn't the only thing that we require for a just society. There are
Yeah.
a lot of more components that are required in order for the society to be just.
Okay.
Not just the emotion of truth, like for example, sympathy.
Okay.
Um, Ma'am, I'm not sure, but I don't think that with just truth you'll be able to change the society into a just society.
Yeah, that's fair. But I
It's not
want to say that like the idea is not to say that other elements don't lead to just society. The idea is, do we need to be truthful inherently, or can we actually use the path of like lying in order to, probably make some people happy? For example, if somebody is dying.
white lies.
So if somebody is dying and you as a doctor, you tell him that, you know what, you're probably going to live longer, etc., etc., just to make him happy for some time, at least for the time that he's like alive. Is it okay, or is it not okay? Is it unjustified, or is it fine?
Ma'am, so as in white lies, those are
Yeah.
justified. because
Yeah. So,
they
but
are
white lies aren't to truthfulness, right?
they aren't truthfulness, but they definitely improve the society. It can bring joy to people, give hope to people. So
So you think we can actually say that truthfulness is like the opposite of truthfulness could also lead to just society?
um no, not really. Lying isn't the best thing to do, but white lies and other such exceptions are there to the case. So
Okay.
truthfulness definitely doesn't build a just society completely.
Okay, let's try to make arguments for truthfulness then. Why do we think that truthfulness leads to a just society? I think Vachi's argument was about trust, which is a really good argument. What other arguments do you guys have? Why do you think truthfulness could lead to just society?
Transparency.
Transparency, yes, but in what context? Between people or like or even in macro level?
Ma'am, could you repeat the question between people and even
Is it just between people or even at macro level?
ma'am, which level?
Macro,
Oh,
MACR.
okay. Yes. Ma'am, I think just between people.
I would say it's also macro levels because I think we can also say that insofar as truthfulness becomes the virtue and like something that is a narrative in the society, it could also like force and make people more accountable for the things that they have done. For example, politicians making statements in rallies, they're going to be if they start being truthful, it's going to be so much easier for people to actually go ahead and hold them accountable, but also in general to be able to actually know which party you want to vote for. Similarly, if people are actually truthful in general, it could also lead to like better um, court hearings because you would not have fake witnesses, fake evidences, because now people aren't actually being, like in the wrong path. That's another way. Why else do you think truthfulness leads to just society? Or is there any like is there a story that anyone wants to tell? In the last session, actually, there was a person who gave me a really good story. If you don't have it, I will give it. So the story that the other person actually gave me was how it was a test, and he noticed that his teacher had given him mark for even the question that he did wrong. And he at first obviously you become greedy to have more marks, but he said what's the point of getting great like good marks if I actually did not understand and do it actually by myself. So he went to the teacher. His teacher was very impressed. His teacher had a good impression of him forever after that. And obviously that showed that not a lot of people will would have probably done it. When I did it actually in my school, I went to the teacher. The teacher actually ended up not reducing my marks because she was very impressed by how honest I was, which is something that should be credited. So that's also something which you can use in as a story in your uh, speech. Yes, Vachi.
Could we also write that this will influence, if the people are not truthful, it will influence the working of the government as the lower level politicians will work with dishonesty to get to higher levels?
Yeah, yeah. So things like corruption and stuff, you can always argue. Yes. Are there any other arguments that you guys want to run? If not, I want you to find a really amazing quote that that relates to truthfulness leads to a just society, and then we'll conclude today's class. So tell me a really good quote. Find a quote online. Google it. Now you can Google it, obviously. Did anyone find anything?
Justice is truth in action.
Justice is truth in action.
Yes.
Okay, who said this?
Ma'am, Vani.
Oh. And once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth.
Okay. Who
Ma'am,
said
there
this?
is no.
Ma'am, me, Garv.
You
Ma'am,
said it. Anagaya.
there is no God higher than truth, as Mahatma Gandhi said.
Oh, nice. Okay. So the reason as to why I'm asking who said it is because you can I quote Mahatma Gandhi, or I quote, let's say what I have. I quote James Faust. Honesty is more than not lying. It is truth telling, truth speaking, truth living, and truth loving. Or it could be I quote, let's see, Thomas Jefferson. No, I don't think it's not making any sense. Actually, Mahatma Gandhi also said truthfulness is the real mark of civilization. So, not just a just society, but a good society. So, I want you to, day after tomorrow, you have your rounds. I want you to incorporate all that has been taught. I want you to learn your speech. And I want you to enjoy the process of learning and the process of actually delivering your speech. Stand and then give your speech. But yeah, have fun and be on time. I think you're supposed to join by 2:45. All the best, everybody. I hope you do amazing.